We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Chief warns that chemical weapons body faces difficult moments. Merkel calls for a real and true European army. A process is launched to remove Sudan from the terror blacklist. Democrats gain U.S. Senate seat as Arizona Republican concedes. CNN sues the White House over barring of a reporter. Plus, INC Aid to Humanity reaches out to children in American Samoa. Hello everyone, I am Sarah Nachman bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The body's new chief said Tuesday the world's chemical arms watchdog is confronting a difficult moment after a series of recent attacks and a Russian spy scandal. In an interview days before a key meeting of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Director General Fernando Arias said attacks in Salisbury, Kuala Lumpur, and Syria were, quote, worrying. But Arias said the OPCW would look beyond temporary divisions among members because, quote, this organization is forever when it came to the eradication of chemical arms.
We are going through a difficult moment. In the world, there are difficult moments and there are very good moments also. But what I can say is that the general feeling of the member states of this organization is that the OPCW is more needed than ever, because we are surrounded by chemicals since we get up until we go to bed. For us, what we see now is that the moment is difficult. Nothing can be so difficult as impossible to be solved, but what we look at is at the horizon of the responsibilities of this organization. This organization is much more than Syria. Syria is an important issue, of course. Salisbury is an important issue, of course. But this is much more than that.
Of course,
it is worrying, without any doubt. I'm aware it is worrying, but I'm aware. But at the same time, I react and I speak to my people, and they work to guarantee that we have the tools for reducing those risks. Before, we have this responsibility for attribution, and we are setting up the team for Syria, and we will see what is the way we carried out this new mandate, how to carry it.
The OPCW was rocked in October when Dutch authorities said they had caught and expelled 4 Russian agents trying to hack the organization's computer system using equipment in a car parked in a nearby hotel. The hacking bid came as the OPCW was investigating a nerve agent attack in the British city of Salisbury that London has blamed on Moscow, and also a suspected chemical attack in Russia's ally Syria. Russia has meanwhile likened the OPCW to a sinking Titanic after member states agreed in June, despite Moscow's opposition, to boost its powers to be able to attribute blame for chemical attacks. German Chancellor Angela Merkel on Tuesday made a clear call for a future European army, and an apparent rebuke to U.S. President Donald Trump, who has called such proposals insulting.
Ich habe vorgeschlagen, dass wir einen Europäischen Sicherheitsrat einsetzen mit wechselnden, rotierenden Besetzungen der Mitgliedstaaten, in dem wichtige Beschlüsse schneller vorbereitet werden können. Aber wir sollten, das sage ich sehr bewusst auch aus der Entwicklung der letzten Jahre, wir sollten an der Vision arbeiten, eines Tages auch eine echte europäische Armee zu schaffen.
Merkel's call came as Trump again mocked French President Emmanuel Macron Tuesday for his own suggestion to create a European army, a proposal that Washington fears could overshadow the NATO alliance. Up next, a process is launched to remove Sudan from the terror blacklist. Democrats gain U.S. Senate seat as Arizona Republican concedes. CNN sues the White House over barring of a reporter. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. U.S. Judge d'Affaires in Khartoum, Steve Kautsis, announces that the United States is prepared to initiate process to remove Khartoum from its blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism during a press conference at the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum. Sudan on Thursday welcomed the U.S. announcement that Washington was willing to remove Khartoum from its blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism and said it was ready to cooperate.
As part of this engagement, the United States is prepared to initiate the process of rescinding Sudan's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism. A Sudan that has settled all the outstanding claims in the United States and fully compliant on North Korea is a Sudan that will be much better positioned internationally than it is right now. Because Sudan is on the list of state sponsor of terror, we are by law required to block any funding from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund and other international financial institutions.
The U.S. State Department Wednesday said Washington was prepared to initiate the process of rescinding Sudan's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism if Khartoum undertakes more reforms. It called on Sudan to engage in further anti-terrorism cooperation and improve its human rights record, and act on outstanding claims related to terrorism, as well as work to resolve internal conflicts. The announcement came after talks Tuesday in Washington between U.S. Deputy John Sullivan and Sudanese Foreign Minister Al-Diri Ahmed. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry said the talks mark the launching of the second phase of the strategic dialogue with the United States, aimed at bolstering bilateral cooperation between the two countries and achieving progress in a number of fields of mutual concern. A statement said Sudan welcomes these talks and the U.S. announcement that it was ready to engage in a process to remove Sudan from a list of state sponsors of terrorism in stages. The statement stressed Sudan's readiness to engage in steps aimed at reaching the aspired goals. Washington blacklisted Sudan in 1993 over its alleged links with Islamist extremists, and in 1998 it struck Khartoum with cruise missiles. Al-Qaeda founder Osama bin Laden lived in Sudan between 1992 to 1996. In October 2017, Washington lifted decades-old sanctions on Sudan following improved relations between the two countries. Officials say blacklisting Sudan is holding back its crisis-hit economy from recovering as international banks, global financial institutions, and investors remain wary of conducting commercial transactions with the country.
Arizona Republican Martha McSally conceded her razor-thin U.S. Senate race Monday, providing Democrats a key pickup in a state that has not elected a Democrat to the Senate in 3 decades.
Hey everybody, I just called Kirsten Sinema and congratulated her on becoming Arizona's first female senator after a hard-fought battle. I wish her all success as she represents Arizona in the Senate.
U.S. networks Fox and CNN called the race for Sinema's favor. She will replace the retiring Senator Jeff Flake, a conservative Republican who is a critic of President Donald Trump. The victory by Sinema, an Arizona congresswoman, will provide Democrats a critical extra vote in the 100-member chamber, which Republicans will still control when the dust settles from last week's closely watched midterm elections. With almost all ballots counted from the November 6 election, Sinema had expanded her lead each of the last 4 days. On Sunday evening, Sinema held a lead of 38,197 votes, or 1.72 percentage points. Trump weighed into the Arizona race after the election, crying foul when authorities took days to count ballots and used a procedure that allowed voters to confirm their signatures in cases where there were discrepancies. Citing no proof of wrongdoing, Trump said on Twitter, "Just out in Arizona, signatures don't match, electoral corruption. Call for a new election. We must protect our democracy." Sinema, who at 42 will be one of the Senate's youngest members, said she would be addressing supporters Monday night in Phoenix. Her race was one of the 3 Senate battles that remained undecided. A fierce fight remains in Florida, where authorities are conducting a recount in the race for the seat held by Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, who is facing a challenge by Republican Rick Scott. Mississippi's Senate race is headed to a runoff, which is expected to be won by Republican incumbent Cindy Hyde Smith. The Arizona race was among the most hotly contested of 2018, with a reported $50 million spent between the two parties and outside groups. McSally is famous for being America's first female fighter pilot to fly in combat. She had embraced Trump and his policies during her Senate race.
And I also want to say thank you to everybody who supported me in this campaign, my staff and volunteers and everybody who voted for me. I'm so grateful for you as my wingmen and my wingwomen in this journey. We sure wish it came out with a different result. But as I traveled around this state, I was so inspired by the many people that I met. And I am convinced Arizona is the best state in the country, and our best days are still yet to come.
CNN sued Donald Trump's administration Tuesday, alleging the White House violated journalist Jim Acosta's rights under the Constitution by revoking his press credentials, following a heated exchange with the U.S. president.
Announcing the lawsuit, the news network said in a statement, "The wrongful revocation of these credentials violates CNN and Acosta's First Amendment rights of freedom of the press and their Fifth Amendment rights to due process." It added, "We have asked this court for an immediate restraining order requiring the pass to be returned to Jim and will seek permanent relief as part of this process."
Coming up, INC's Aid to Humanity reaches out to children in American Samoa. Eagle News Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News Washington, D.C. I am Sarah Nackman. In its effort to reach out to economically challenged or calamity-stricken communities around the world, the Iglesia ni Cristo, through its project Aid to Humanity, continues. In American Samoa, school-age children receive free clothing during an INC's aid effort in Pago Pago. Eagle News correspondent Felchi Oghayan reports.
1 year since the first Aid for Humanity project in American Samoa was launched, members of the Church of Christ in this part of the world continue their acts of generosity, this time intended for the children. A free clothing drive was held at the INC's place of worship in Pango Pango. Visitors young and old took advantage of the opportunity to receive nice clothes that they needed for school, work, or other occasions. Visitors were also treated with some refreshments to counter the heat and humidity as the summer season approaches and this time of year in the South Pacific.
The Aid for Humanity in American Samoa is just one part of the global church's effort to extend aid to the poor and those affected by recent calamities in various parts of the world. Reporting from Pango Pango in American Samoa, this is Felci Oghayan, and I am one with 25.
Thank you, Felchi. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our website at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook. Also follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. On behalf of Eagle News Washington, D.C., thank you for watching. I am Sarah Nackman, and I am one with 25.